Good evening, St. Louis, and welcome into Energizer Park. I'm Matthew Rocchio, and you're listening to STL Sports Central, and this is the City Central postgame. I know some changes are coming, but right now we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing, and that's talking about a St. Louis City team that continues to pick up points in this MLS schedule. 9 straight games picking up a result for St. Louis City SC, but plenty to criticize tonight as they controlled the ball for almost 70% of this game and yet only walk away with 1 point in a 1-1 draw against the worst-named team in the entire league, Real Salt Lake. I'm Matthew Rocchio, of course, again, live from Energizer Park, and this is a postgame that you guys can take hold of. We love our chatters. We love our listeners. That's why we're going to keep bringing you these postgames. And so get into the chat with any questions or comments you have after tonight's St. Louis City game. I've gotten plenty of thoughts. And actually, let's, as we kind of get into this, I started this a little early, but let's go ahead and make sure we can, at some point tonight, bring up the press conference from Yohan Damet and company for St. Louis City SC tonight. Let's see if we can stay on the air long enough to maybe bring in some Yohan Damet, because I think his answers from tonight are going to be very interesting. Because, again, you control 70% of the game. You expect to control the game. And at no point did St. Louis City feel like they were actually in control, despite the fact that they just had so much of the ball. And I think that's something that we can that it's fair for us to be a little bit aggravated about, is that St. Louis City didn't have that punch that they really needed in a game like this one. And that's going to be disappointing, because when you have that much of the ball, when you have players like Edward Lubin who are on the field for the whole game or for a large chunk of the game, and then you bring in a Marcel Hartel, you want a little bit more. When you have 20 shots on goal and they have less than double digits, you expect to dominate in danger and really forcing things this game. And that's the problem with St. Louis City. They never really got dangerous. 4 shots on target while RSL put 3 on target. This is a team that didn't have a shot on target in the first half. And yet somehow St. Louis City goes ahead and allows them to not only get shots on target, but to take the lead in this game, which I thought was extremely surprising for St. Louis City going forward. The defense has been so good, and they just let slip a little bit too much that allowed RSL to punch through. And unfortunately, that takes away a chance for them to get 3 points. And I think some people are going to argue that they took away their own chance to get 3 points by not starting Marcel Hartel, who, as soon as he came on, and you can see it up there in the top there, Marcel Hartel starts this game on the bench, subs in 65th minute, and then scores in the 73rd minute. And really, anybody who watched this game is going to tell you the same thing. It changed on a dime when Marcel Hartel came off the bench for St. Louis City SC. So I think it's fair to ask, why did Marcel Hartel not start this game? You can argue that he's played a lot. He runs one of the highest counts on this team. He plays almost every game, and he's one of your best players. So you're thinking, we get a full week of practice. I got Sangbin, who's playing well. I got Edward Lubin, who I'd rather play at the 10. I'll give Marcel Hartel a day off. I can see the logic behind it for Yohan Damet, but I don't think anybody watching this game can come away with saying that St. Louis City clearly loses something without Marcel Hartel. And that's even when somebody like Edward Lubin, who we all know is so talented, is in this game. It's not concerning, but it is illustrative of some of the things we've seen from City, some of the things we've grown to expect from St. Louis City. One of the big conversations we continue to get into is, where is the right place for Edward Lubin in this system? Another game tonight where Chris Durkin and Daniel Edelman did a fine job, especially defensively, as the double pivot. But the bottom line is that this double pivot doesn't get it done when it comes to ball movement, because not only was there a huge impact when Marcel Hartel came on in the 65th minute, but there was also another man who subbed in the 65th minute, and that was debutant Alex Matan, we're calling him Alex Matan, who subbed in despite being 5'4", for Chris Durkin, who had picked up a yellow in that double pivot. And having somebody, even that small, who's willing to run box to box, and more importantly, can take a pass at his feet when his back is turned to the opposing net, can turn with the ball and then push it forward and create attacks from that angle, that's what St. Louis City has consistently lacked this season with Durkin and Edelman in the midfield. And right out of the gate, Alexander Matan gave that to St. Louis City. It's going to be interesting to watch that going forward. Eggplant emoji, always loyal here in the chat, gets in there and said, this is one of those matches where I can't decide if I'm happy or sad with the end result. Either way, can't wait for the new players to find their groove and see how the second half goes. Well, again, I think it's fair enough to be sad with this one. When you have a team that has 68% of the possession, you expect a little bit more decisiveness and domination of the game. And at no point did they really do that. At the same time, you can look at the bright side of things and be happy with the draw, because this is a team that, while City came in at the top of the form table, they're playing the best in the MLS over the last 6 matches with 5 wins and a draw. They unfortunately are still sagging behind RSL in the overall standings. RSL's a good team who hasn't been playing great the last few weeks. So is it nice that you got a point and didn't fall at home to a team that's higher than you in the standings? It's nice, but I think the St. Louis fan base is moving past a point where they want those kind of consolation prize. This team, with the additions of Matan, with the additions of the costliest player in team history in Carlo Holse, fan base is starting to expect more, and that's a good thing. And so there's a lot of little things we could pick at if we wanted to in this game, but the bottom line is that just wasn't enough from St. Louis City. And this is a game where I think it's fair to say, did they give themselves the best chance, considering they didn't start with Marcel Hartel in the starting lineup? And I thought he was obviously better, and he obviously changed this team when he was in the starting lineup. I thought the first half was really different. First 20 minutes of the game were borderline dominant by St. Louis City. Got a lot of good movement, a lot of pieces of movement, a lot of 3-man motion and connections and triangle work that we really haven't seen from St. Louis City SC this season. They've been a team that has been a little bit herky-jerky at times in their attack. This was a fluid attack for the first 20 minutes, and this is our last big thing, and we'll talk about this. That was one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen in MLS. That was horrendous. Like usual, when is there a problem with the officiating? It's when there's an unevenness. If you have a game where an official is going to call a little tighter, fine. If you're going to have a game where an official is going to let it go a little bit more, fine. But just consistency. I want the same thing that's a foul in the 20th minute to be a foul in the 75th minute, so on and so forth. And that was not tonight. A very open game in the first 20 minutes, and then it was chopped up into a very hectic game by an official who didn't really get a good handle on the game. There was a lot of fouls. I thought City got away with a few. I thought RSL got away with a lot more. Not trying to be biased here, but one of their center backs who picked up a yellow early, Philip Quinton, number 26, got away with a bunch of really, really obvious, I think, cardable penalties in the second half that kept giving RSL a chance to kind of muck the game up and slow down a St. Louis City team that was, again, despite not being that great in the final third, and that's been a problem all season, we had the ball the majority of the time and really kept pestering and moving things into the area for RSL. And it's just super disappointing that despite out-touching them in the box, 37 times St. Louis City touched the ball in the box tonight. 37 times they got a touch in the box, and those touches came to 4 shots on target. That's a very disappointing amount there. 16 touches in the box for RSL, and you walk away tied. You doubled them up in one of the most indicative stats at being dangerous. What is a great stat that shows what you're able to do? Touches in the opposition box, and they completely wasted an overwhelming majority, and that's a huge disappointment for St. Louis City going forward right now. They need quality in the final third. Will Carlo Holse bring enough quality in the final third to take this team from being a solid team, a team that plays an okay game against a top 4 team in this conference? Or can Carlo Holse take this offense to a team that's incisive and deadly in the final third, that can take advantage of having this much possession, that can take advantage of more than just a press win? Because that's the thing about St. Louis's offense. They had 4 shots on target, but one of them, the one they scored, came off of pressing, which I think is a huge part of this team. I'm not going to try to take away the fact that they got the press goal. But what we're talking about here is St. Louis's ability to break down a team that's putting men in the middle and be incisive, to make that run that really opens things up, that cracks open the defense. And the fact of the matter is, they don't make those runs enough. They don't have the incisive passing enough. Can Carlo Holse, the new player that was announced on Thursday, can he finally be the player that takes them from being a good team that is unfortunately below average in the final third to a great team that is at least above average in the final third? That's the hope. And I think when you watch his highlights, and highlights are highlights, right now, the only thing I can find on YouTube from his Samson Poor days is UEFA Conference League games, which he played very well in against some very solid Spanish and French competition. Not trying to take anything away from it, but when you watch the highlights, He looks like a guy who likes to bomb in from deep. He looks like a guy who likes to make that last decisive run past the back line. So everything we see on tape tells us that Carlo Holse is going to add that. And it's going to be crucial to see if City can get that addition as we move forward. We're getting some chats in here. PSIM Man says, I'm disappointed. 9 matches with no loss is great. We could have moved up way higher in the standings with a win. It's a completely fair way to think about it. I mean, that game is one that you had in your hands. And I apologize for the poor lighting. I'm trying something different with the shot out to the field. Maybe it's not working. We're going to keep trying and see what does work here on City Central. So, yeah, I agree with you. You got to be happy with what they've done over 9 matches, but you don't have to be happy with how tonight went. You don't have to be happy with potentially a starting lineup decision that took away your ability to be that deadly in the first 70 minutes. We were talking here on the press box, and Matt Baker, who does a great job with Flyover Footy, was like, hey, you guys got any last-minute hot takes? Just kind of having a little fun. And my hot take was, I'm not going to like it as it's true, but this game will prove why Marcel Hartel is so much more valuable in this system than Edward Leuven. And again, I don't think that says that Edward Leuven isn't valuable in this system. I think he is valuable in this system. I think the fact that he doesn't 100% have a position and that he doesn't necessarily cover enough ground to play the 6 every day, but he's so good deep that you don't necessarily want to play him as a 10. So it's a little bit tricky with Leuven and things like that. But I think it's just we see what Marcel Hartel can do. His ability to drop deep, win the ball, run through the middle, his ability just to take chances. I think Leuven is the kind of guy who maybe he's a perfectionist, and at times he's looking for that perfect pass, and he doesn't take maybe the riskier pass that has a good chance of getting taken away, but also has a good chance of maybe opening up a big play. And I think Marcel Hartel's willing to open up and make that big play. Again, he didn't necessarily do that tonight to get the big incisive goal for St. Louis City. It was a pressing play where he jumped on it and was deadly. But that's the difference with Marcel Hartel, is that he has that last 5%. And that was the difference, and I think we saw that tonight. Eggplant emoji, whatever happened to Fall? I thought we were supposed to be a game-changing acquisition. We all did. And the fact of the matter is, the only conclusion we can come to about Fall is that he's not doing enough he's not doing enough in training. Like, that's the only conclusion we can naturally come to with Fall, because he got the start to close out the first half of the season. We come back after a month or two away when they're training really hard and everyone's got a chance to win a job, and he's not out there. It's Lucas McNaughton at right back and Dante Polvara, or right center back, and Dante Polvara over at left center back. Dante Polvara would be a better, more natural right center back, and Fall's a natural left center back, but he's not playing it because he's not showing up enough in training and proving to Damet, you got to play me. And that's problematic going forward because he's not doing enough. And you really want to see more from Fall going forward. PSM Man says, man, I'm excited too. When Hartel and Matan came in, the game totally changed. Yes, it did. Maton's such an interesting player because I don't think he's going to be a starter just because they have all the 10s. They have Holse, they have Marcel, they have Sangbin, they have Leuven for half the time. I think Matan, despite being so small, playing the pivot, again, he adds that turn. He gives you at the pivot potentially what Ostrak gives them in the 10, which is that guy off the bench who can give them that last 20-minute punch and really make a difference in the game, because Damet doesn't really see Ostrak as being able to drop deeper into the central midfielder. So Ostrak is your kind of fiery 10 you bring in the 65th minute. Matan, I think, is going to be more of a utility guy. Maybe he'll come in at wing back, close down a game, he'll come in at the pivot. Maybe if they're up 2-0 and Damet just wants to run them down, he'll come in for one of the 10s and just be a guy who covers box to box and things like that. I think Matan's going to be a really interesting piece for Damet. And that's a perfect move for him. Damet knows him. He knows Damet's system. That's the kind of guy you bring in as a Swiss Army. Maybe Damet isn't happy with his training. I don't know, but I think the back line has been fine, except Timo running into Berkey. That's the other thing, is that you don't want to ruin what's going so great. And right now the back line is playing really great. Obviously, getting opened up the way they did against RSL tonight, you don't want to see that. But I think when you're talking about 135 minutes, because that last game against Colorado, because of the red card, but nonetheless, no shots on target. Tonight, first half, no shots on target for RSL. Over 2 hours of not allowing a shot on target is pretty impressive when you get down to it. So I don't want to harp too much on the defense. And that's the thing. If they're playing so well, why would we have an expectation that Damet would go to them if we don't need him. And speaking of going to Damet, let's go to Yohan Damet and hear a little bit from him in the presser. My apologies there. I thought we had Damet on the presser, but it looks like for some reason I'm not able to show you guys the presser today. Sorry, I'm doing this remotely from Energizer Park, and this one's not just working. Next time we do a post game from the away game next week against San Jose, I'll make sure that I can pipe in a little bit of Yohan Damet. I also want to ask Yohan Damet questions. I want to find out what happened with Hartel. Let's jump on Twitter here as I pick up my phone here. By the way, St. Louis City SC is on for their next 2 games. They face off after a little bit of a break of 2 weeks against the San Jose Earthquakes. That one is in San Jose, where they have been a much better team than they have been away. They've also been struggling overall over the last 4 or 5 weeks, but a 2-week break. No game next weekend for St. Louis City as they face off against San Jose. And then they have another rematch against Kansas City, the Derby on the other side of the state, 3 weeks from now on the 19th. That is a midweek game coming up, a Wednesday game against SKC coming up in 2.5 weeks here for St. Louis City. I'm gonna jump on Twitter here. If you guys have any chats, go ahead and fill them in. Let's see if we get a word from the presser on Marcel Hartel, and then after we find out what happened with Marcel Hartel, maybe why he didn't start today, we can close things out. Let's see here. On Marcel Hartel, here we go. From Damet, I'm reading this tweet now from Matt Baker at STL on Twitter on Marcel Hartel. I've been in touch with Cello this week. He wasn't feeling the greatest, so we thought it was best for him to sit on the bench to start the game. He's been outstanding, incredible relationship with him, and he gave us a big boost when he came in. So all the people who maybe were freaking out when they saw that Marcel Hartel wasn't starting, thinking that Hanover rumor is something to roll with, I don't think it is. Not a lot of players in the second Bundesliga are getting paid the $2 million a year that Marcel Hartel's making. He's not going to want to take a pay cut. They would also have to pay him $2 million on top of paying City $4+ million to transfer him in the first place. I think Marcel Hartel is safe here. I think the big question going forward isn't, who does Carlo Holse take Marcel Hartel's spot or something along those lines. And it's going to be how they fit Edward Leuven into this lineup going forward, because I think the 10s going forward, it's going to be Hartel, it's going to be Holse. They both run their legs off all day long. Damet loves that kind of play. So we know what's going on with Marcel Hartel. I thought he could be sick. I thought maybe he was feeling a little run down. Maybe it's a combination of the two. Either way, could have used him for the full game, but there's the explanation from Yohan Damet as to why he didn't play. Nonetheless, 68% possession, over double the passes, over double the touches in the opposition box. This is a game you have to walk away with 3 points. The fact that St. Louis City tonight is not a failure, but this is one of those games where we look back in a month or two, as we're talking about playoff races, and we're saying, if City could have won this one, could they be in the 5th spot? Could this be the difference between them being in the 4th spot? In a month or two, something tells me we're going to be looking back at a game where they dominated but couldn't actually take over on the field and wondering what could those 2 more points could have done. If you guys saw it earlier today, obviously Charlie Marlowe had a comment about STL Sports Central. Things are going to change, but as long as my schedule works, I'm still going to be bringing you St. Louis City and St. Louis Billikens coverage. Maybe I can't cover as many practices during the week as I usually can, but nonetheless, follow me at RockSTLReal, RoccSTL Real, if you want to follow me. That's not Real like these guys. That's just Real on Rock STL. We're going to still be bringing the Billikens coverage. We're still going to be bringing the City coverage, videos, tactical breakdowns, maybe even the weekly STL Soccer Central podcast. All those things come in. And listen, if you like the content, if you have a criticism for the content, if you want to know, if you want to tell me, hey, this is how you make the content a little bit better, this is the problem, this is what we want to see, this is what we don't want to see anymore, let me know in the comments here, right here on the STL Sports Central YouTube page. They're shutting out the lights. I got to go. This has been City Central Postgame on STL Sports Central. Thank you so much to you guys on YouTube. You listeners make this happen. Thank you so much to the chatters, always keeping the show going. I'm Matthew Rocchio. This is City Central Postgame. Have a great night, St. Louis.